Welcome to today's video, creating a personal development plan, 18 action steps to improve your life. Welcome guys, I hope you enjoyed the previous episodes of the Freedom series. Remember we had 31 episodes. This is the final episode today. We had 30 previous episodes ranging from about maybe 4 minutes to about 10 minutes or so. Today's video would be a bit long because we are actually going to be creating a personal development plan in today's video. Now, if you have not looked at the previous videos 1 to 30, my suggestion is that you do, because you may have to tap into some of the things that we talked about in the previous video in order to get a decent understanding of what we're doing in creating the personal development plan. Now, you do not necessarily need the prerequisite information, but it would be useful. Let's get into it. Now, in creating a personal development plan, we are going to use these 18 steps. I'm not going to go over these 18 steps here on this page because we are going to be going into them one by one on the following slides. We'll be treating with each step in detail on the following slides, so I'm not going to go through them here in this stage. Good? So let's go. Personal development plan. The first thing we need to do is recognize that our personal development plan would be hinged on our well-being, and we need to have a definition of the term well-being. We need to know, when we say well-being, what we mean. Different people mean different things when they use certain terms. We want to be clear on what we mean when we use certain terms, and throughout the presentation you may find that we are attempting to get clarity in terms of the way we define things before we attempt to do anything with them. So we must be clear on our definitions. The first step in creating a personal development plan is to define well-being. And I've given you a definition here. You could use this definition, or you could create your own definition, or you could go to the internet and choose a definition that you're comfortable with. My recommendation is that you define it in your own terms. And I'm saying well-being refers to, at minimum, being comfortable and or satisfied in specific areas of our lives. So we identify specific areas of our lives, and to the extent that we are comfortable or satisfied, we could be said to be enjoying a level of well-being. So that's the first step, define well-being. Second step, identify key dimensions of well-being. Now, there are several aspects of our lives, and the various aspects of our lives would dwell within one of the dimensions of well-being. For example, we could talk from the perspective of spiritual well-being, and we would attempt to define that in a while. We could also talk from the perspective of physical well-being. We could talk from the perspective of intellectual well-being. We could talk from the perspective of emotional well-being, social well-being, environmental well-being, occupational well-being. Sorry, that previous one was financial well-being, not environmental. That's financial well-being, occupational well-being, and now we could add environmental well-being. So I have identified 8 dimensions of well-being. These 8 are the common ones that you would see in the literature, you would see on the internet. You could identify more dimensions if you think there are, or if you're satisfied, you could leave it at this point. For example, some people talk in terms of societal well-being, the well-being of the society. How am I contributing in that regard? How am I adding to or taking away from in that regard? So there are some persons that would have added dimensions. Some persons would prefer to focus on less dimensions. So that's step 2. Identify key dimensions of well-being on your terms. Step 3. Based on your understanding of the various dimensions of well-being, give a brief definition of each in your own words. So based on what you understand about the various dimensions of well-being, you are now invited to create your own definition. Remember, I said different things mean different things to different people. So for example, if I say spiritual well-being, what might be my definition may not necessarily be your definition or anybody else's definition. I would define spiritual well-being as strengthening my relationship with the Creator and practicing the precepts of my spiritual beliefs. And that may or may not include religion. Somebody may define it in a different way that includes religion. In terms of my physical well-being, I could define it as having a body composition that is pleasing to me and being free from illness. You could define it as having optimal levels of energy to do everything that I want to do. You could define it as whatever way you want to define it. So everybody's definition may not be the same. And in this step, we are asked to clarify our own way of defining. In terms of financial well-being, we could talk from the perspective of cumulatively obtaining those material things by which the progress of an individual is measured. For example, a nice home in a great neighborhood, a nice car. So in terms of your financial well-being, you have the ability to afford those things, the material things that you want. Other persons could define financial well-being in terms of their bank balance. For example, having a minimum bank balance of $100,000 or something to that effect. So we could define things in different ways. For the dimensions of well-being that you identified in step 2, in step 3, we are now asked to define them on our terms in our own words. That's step 3. Step 4, in creating the personal development plan, we are invited to identify your ideal within each dimension. What do we mean by your ideal within each dimension? So here's the thing. In our mind, we have a sense of what it would be to be ideal in a particular area. What's the best for us? What we are hoping for? What we wish we could achieve? What we wish would have been our state of affairs. In our mind, we have a sense of what that is. You have a sense of the perfect relationship. You have the sense of your perfect body. You have a sense of the intellectual standards you would like to reach or be functioning from. So you have a clear sense in your mind of how you would like things to be, how you would like your home to be, how you would like the environment to be. If you stop and think about it, you have a clear sense of how you would want things to be. So the next step, step 4, is to identify that ideal, which is sometimes referred to as your mental blueprint. The blueprint in your mind of what is ideal in this dimension. So for example, I could talk about my mental blueprint or my ideal in relation to physical well-being. I can say my ideal would be to weigh 170 pounds of lean body tissue. Or I could speak in terms of my ability to do something. So in terms of my mental blueprint in relation to the physical well-being dimension, I would like to be able to run the steps at the stadium 10 times in half hour without undue fatigue. So I have a clear sense of how I would like things to be in terms of either my physical appearance or body structure, or my ability to achieve certain tasks. And that's what you're required to do in step 4 for all areas. Identify what might be your ideal and make a clear statement on it. Another example, if we're talking about emotional well-being, I can say my ideal would be to significantly reduce or eliminate my episodes of angry outbursts and to respond constructively to the vicissitudes of life with a sense of calm and inner poise. So ideally, I would like to not engage in angry outbursts. Ideally, I would like to minimize it or totally eliminate it. and I would like to respond constructively to life's ups and downs. Vicissitudes talks about life's ups and downs, the highs and lows, the challenging moments as well as the good ones. So I would like to respond constructively as opposed to perhaps in a depressive way or in a destructive way to the challenges that I may encounter in life. I would like to operate at all times with a sense of calm and inner poise. And that's my ideal in relation to my emotional well-being. Now, I've chosen physical well-being and emotional well-being as the examples to use throughout this presentation because physical well-being is fairly straightforward and may be easy to work with as an example, but emotional well-being may be a bit challenging. There may be qualitative aspects required rather than quantitative aspects. What do I mean? So in terms of my physical well-being, I could talk about 170 pounds of muscle, or I could talk about lose 30 pounds. I could speak from a quantitative perspective. In terms of my emotional well-being, I may have to speak from a qualitative perspective. For example, a sense of calm and inner poise. So I've chosen those as the two examples I will use throughout the presentation to, well, help us navigate the difficulty in treating with the respective dimensions. So, step 4. Identify your ideal in the respective dimensions. Step 5. Discuss your current life's conditions that you're experiencing in relation to each dimension. So here's an example. This is supposed to be in relation, it's not in relational. In relation to my physical well-being, let's say I am currently 30 pounds overweight and I get tired quite easily. So that's my current situation. In relation to my physical well-being, I'm currently 30 pounds overweight and I get tired quite easily. That's what's going on in my life at this point. In terms of my emotional well-being, I can say, in relation to my emotional well-being, I currently engage in negative self-talk several times every day. I could say the same thing in relation to my financial well-being. I have a bank balance of about $10,000. So the step 5 is to identify your current state of affairs or your current life's conditions. In step 4, we identified our preferred state of affairs, our ideal, our mental blueprint. In step 5, now we are looking at our current state of affairs. In step 6, we're required to conduct a rating of each dimension. In personal development, we tend to use something called a RAG rating. And RAG is simply red, amber, and green, where red stands for a lot of improvement required, A stands for a little improvement required, or amber, a little improvement required, and green, I am satisfied with my efforts and results in this area. So when we take into consideration step 4, which talks about your ideal or your mental blueprint or your preferred state of affairs, and in step 5, we look at our life's conditions. When we compare what is actually going on in our life right now to what we would prefer, is there a lot of room for improvement, a little room for improvement, or are you satisfied with the efforts and results? So if we were to talk about our physical well-being, let's just say we were 30 pounds overweight as we identified. We have a lot of room for improvement there. We need to take some serious action. The red means that we should stop what we're doing that is causing us to gain weight. We should pay attention and we should make some different decisions because we have a lot of room for improvement. If we were at a situation where we were 10 to 15 pounds overweight, we had a little room for improvement, which means that we could pay attention to what we're doing, identify those things that we need to change, and begin making the changes. If we were close to our ideal weight, or give or take 5 pounds overweight or so, then we could be satisfied with the effort that we're making and the results that we're getting. So we could say that we are a G. So step 6 asks us to identify whether you are red, a lot of improvement, amber, a little improvement, or green, satisfied, in relation to step 4 versus step 5. Now, step 7, we need to identify what has been described as the cost of inaction, the cost of doing nothing. And the question we have to answer here is, if you are at red or amber, what happens if you do nothing? For example, if I am 30 pounds overweight and do nothing to improve the situation, I am likely to gain more weight, possibly become obese, and expose myself to lifestyle diseases. So in all dimensions that we are looking at, you are now asked in step 7 to identify what happens if you do nothing. If we look at emotional well-being, we could ask the question, if I engage in habitual negative self-talk and do nothing about it, what is likely to happen? Well, I can actually talk myself into depression and or become someone that no one wants to be around. So if I engage in habitual negative self-talk, what happens if I don't take action to improve? That's what we are called upon to treat with in step 7. In step 8, we're looking at the opposite end of the continuum. What happens if you take action to improve? Or as some was referred to as your rewards for taking action to improve. What are my rewards for taking action to improve? So if I'm 30 pounds overweight and I do nothing, there would be a cost. If I'm 30 pounds overweight, if I take action to treat with the excess weight, I can improve my physical appearance. I can feel better about myself. I could decrease the likelihood of having a lifestyle disease such as obesity, diabetes, or even heart disease. If I take action, there would be a reward. You are required to look at the dimensions that you identified and ask, what are my rewards for taking action? And of course, down. In terms of emotional well-being, if I take action to address my negative inner dialogue, which I habitually engage in, if I take action to address it, I could improve my core self-evaluation, the way I see myself. I could begin to feel more upbeat about life and even become the life of the party. So we need to look at what's the cost of doing nothing versus the rewards for taking action, and that's what we're asked to do in step 7 and step 9. Identify some of the things that you do that have you stuck. What are some of the things that you are doing that is causing you to be in the situation that you're in? What are some of the things that you're doing that is causing you to get the results that you're getting? Remember, in a previous video, we talked about cause and effect. We talked about everything on the planet is governed by cause and effect. We said everything has its opposite. If you haven't seen those videos, check out the earlier set of videos where we talk about the principle of cause and effect and the principle of polarity. And I'm hoping that we are writing things down and not just listening to the video or looking at the video. I'm hoping that we're actually taking these steps to do this workshop that will allow us to improve in the ways that we want to improve. Step 9. Identify some of the things that you do that have you stuck. So in relation to my physical well-being, some of the reasons why I'm stuck with my current results is because I hardly engage in physical activity and I do not pay attention to my eating habits. Let's just say that's an example of why you are 30 pounds overweight. Identify some of the things that you do in all the dimensions that have you stuck. In relation to your emotional well-being, some of the things that might have you stuck include my negative self-talk or my pessimistic outlook on life. One of the reasons this persists is because of my victim mentality. Because I have a victim mentality, that's one of the reasons why I habitually engage in negative self-talk and have a pessimistic outlook on life. So you're required in this step to identify some of those things that you do that cause you to get the results that you're getting that you do not. Step 10. Identify some of the things that you can do to improve the state of affairs. So remember, we talked in a previous video of the principle of polarity, and we said every single thing has its opposite. If there are certain behaviors that I'm engaging in that are producing results that I do not want, there are behaviors in which I could engage to produce improved results. I could behave in ways that would allow me to get the results that I prefer to have. So we talked about in step 9 some of those behaviors that have us stuck. In step 10, we want to talk about some of those behaviors that could move us in a positive direction. In relation to the physical well-being dimension, we could say, to improve my results in relation to my physical well-being, I can start a fitness program or begin playing a sport. These things are likely to take me in the direction of improved results in my physical well-being. In terms of my emotional well-being, one of the things that I can do is I can seek counseling. So I engage in negative self-talk. I see the world as a negative or pessimistic place. I can seek counseling. That would take me in the direction of improving the results that I'm getting. For all the areas you've identified as your priority areas or the various dimensions of well-being, you must identify that which you must now begin to do in order to move yourself in a positive direction. In a previous video, we talked about managing personal change, and we talked about 6 steps along which every individual engage in order to make personal change. The first step is pre-contemplation, where we are not thinking about making any changes. The second step is contemplation, where we begin to think about making certain kinds of changes. At this point, we should be contemplating all those things that we need to discontinue and those things that we need to begin in order to get better results. Step 11. Based on your mental blueprint or your ideal, create a set of SMART outcome goals. Now, SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. In a previous video called Setting Smart Goals, we discussed the SMART approach to goal setting at detail. You could check out that video if you haven't. If you're not familiar with the SMART method of goal setting, you could check out that video. Now, briefly, specific means that it must be precise, exact, unambiguous. And when we say unambiguous, there must be no double meaning. We must be clear on what we're after. Measurable means that there must be objectively quantifiable indicators. We must be able to quantify that which we are attempting to achieve. We have to find a way to state things in a manner that could be quantified. I think this picture spelled measurable wrong. I perhaps just drew your attention to that. You probably would not have noticed, but it's measurable. A is achievable or attainable. Those things that we are predisposed to take action to achieve. We have the ability to take the kinds of action required to produce the results that we want. So it's achievable. Realistic means that it's set within the realm of reasonableness. It's not unreasonable to expect that these results could be produced. And timely or time-bound mean that there's a time frame attached to our goal setting. Let's look at it by way of an example. If I talk about my SMART outcome goal in relation to physical well-being, is to lose 30 pounds of body fat within the next year. Let's see if it's SMART. Let's see if it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So it's specific because I want to lose body fat. There's no two ways. It's unambiguous. It's precise. I want to lose body fat. It's measurable because I have an objectively quantifiable amount there. 30 pounds. That's what I'm going after. It's quantified. Achievable. I can take action to achieve it because I can I am able-bodied, so I can begin a walking program, I can begin an exercise program, I can begin recreational sport. So it's achievable. I can take action to achieve it. It's realistic. What I'm trying to achieve, that is to lose 30 pounds, given the circumstances that I can exercise, I can participate in sport, it is reasonable because I could lose on average 1 pound every 10 days and still achieve the goal that I set. It's reasonable to expect that an individual could lose 1 pound every 10 days or so. If I had said that my goal is to lose 30 pounds within the next month, then that would have been unreasonable. The time frame would not have been a reasonable one. But because I said 30 pounds within a year or so, then that's in fact reasonable. And there's a time frame, so it's time bound. I've given myself 1 year. So I'm going to force myself to take constant action. I'm going to force myself to be efficient within a 1 year period, rather than simply saying my goal is to lose 30 pounds. Without a time frame, I could allow myself to get off the hook indefinitely. But with a time frame, I have to act. And that's the purpose of putting a time frame to your goal. So this is an example in relation to the well-being. I can also give an example for the emotional well-being aspect. As I mentioned, it's a little more difficult to work with, so I'm working with it as well. So my goal is to reduce my negative self-talk to, at most, 1 episode per day, beginning 2 months from now. My goal is to reduce my negative self-talk to, at most, 1 episode per day, beginning 2 months from now. Is it specific? Yes, I want to reduce my negative self-talk. Is it measurable? Yes, I want to have no more than 1 episode per day. So I'm working with either 0 or 1. It's measurable. If I cross 1, I know that I'm not on target as I need to be. Is it achievable? Yes, I can begin to monitor my inner dialogue. Those things that I'm saying to myself, I can begin to monitor that behavior that I'm having. So it's achievable. Realistic? Is it realistic? Now, research shows that with diligent effort, a new habit can be formed within 52 days. So I've given myself 2 months, which is 60 days. So if I'm diligent and I'm actually paying attention, I could actually begin to form that new habit or to crystallize that new habit within about 2 months or so. And of course, there's a time frame. It's 2 months. So it's not like I'm saying that my aim is to reduce my negative self-talk and I didn't put a time frame. I've put a time frame, which is 2 months. So it means that I have to force myself to, even if I have to use willpower in the beginning, I have to use that willpower to get myself to behave in a different way by paying attention to my inner dialogue. And within about 52 days to 2 months, I would begin to perhaps significantly reduce these episodes. Step 12. Conduct a SWOT analysis. Now, a SWOT analysis, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths are something that is specific to us that increase the likelihood of achieving our goals. Weaknesses are things specific to us that decrease the likelihood of achieving our goals. Opportunities are things not necessarily specific to us. Maybe they're in the external environment or they relate to other persons, but they can help us in terms of achieving our goals. And threats are things that may not necessarily be specific to us. They may be in the external environment or relate to other persons, but they take away from our ability to achieve our goals. So a SWOT analysis, even though you may have to slow yourself down a bit to process what is saying here, it's easy to understand. A SWOT analysis is simply an analysis of the situation or the circumstances in which we find ourselves in relation to the goals or the results that we are trying to achieve. So here's an example. My goal is to lose 30 pounds of body fat within the next year. That's my outcome goal. What is a strength? I can create weight loss programs. Remember, we say a strength is anything that is specific to you that could help in achieving your goal. Now, I have the ability to create weight loss programs. I know how to create weight loss programs, so that's a strength. In relation to my goal, that's one of my strengths. A weakness that I have is I am often inconsistent. Remember, we say a weakness is something specific to you that would take away from your ability to produce the results that you're after. Now, I am often inconsistent. I start and I stop. I start hot and sweaty, and within a week or two, I begin to slack off. Many of us do that level of inconsistency. That's a weakness. So I know something that I could use about myself to take me in the direction of my goal, which is my strength. And I know something about myself that would hinder me or serve as an obstacle to me getting the results that I want long term. Opportunity. Here's one. There are several gyms and play parks close by to where I live. So an opportunity is something in the external environment or relate to another person that could assist me in achieving my goal. So an opportunity is the fact that there are gyms that I could enroll in which would help me with my exercise program. There are play parks that I can go to which would help me with my exercise program. Now here's a threat. Gym fees are expensive, or sometimes play parks are unsafe. So that's something in the external environment that would take away from my ability to achieve my goal. That's a threat. So a SWOT analysis is simply assessing the situation in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where we are attempting to utilize strengths, overcome weaknesses, take advantage of opportunities, and work our way around threats. Here's an example. In relation to emotional well-being, my goal is to reduce my negative self-talk to, at most, 1 episode per day. I hope to be at this level within the next 2 months. So that's my goal, to reduce my negative self-talk to at most 1 episode per day. Now, a strength, I am aware of techniques to manage inner dialogue. That's a strength. That's something about me that could help me in reducing my negative self-talk. I am aware of techniques to manage inner dialogue. A weakness, I unconsciously drift into the undesirable practice of negative self-talk. So I am not even aware of when I'm drifting into this habit of saying negative things about myself or negative things about my chances of success or chances of doing well. That's a weakness. I unconsciously drift into that behavior. But here's an opportunity. My partner is willing to support my efforts to improve my emotional well-being. Remember, we say an opportunity is something that may relate to somebody else, other persons, or the external environment. So my partner, another person, is willing to support my efforts to improve my emotional well-being. That's an opportunity. And then there's a threat. Negative world events often support my negative view of life. Because I'm aware of all the negative that are going on in the world, that tend to reinforce the way I view life in a negative way. That's a threat, which encourages me to engage in negative self-talk. That's something that's taken away from my ability to reduce my negative self-talk. So I've assessed the situation in terms of my emotional well-being goal from the perspective of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Step 13. Convert actions that you can take into SMART process goals. Remember, I said that we must utilize our strengths, overcome our weaknesses, take advantage of opportunities, and find a way around the threats. Now what the action that we're gonna recommend, we're gonna convert them into SMART process goals. Now, an outcome goal is a future desired state that we're trying to achieve, results that we're going after. A process goal refers to the means by which we're going to achieve the results that we're after. Those things that we're going to do, those action steps, the causes in which we're going to engage to produce the results that we want. Those are referred to as process goals. And just as our outcome goals must be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, our process goals as well must be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So, my outcome goal in relation to my physical well-being is to lose 30 pounds of body fat within the next year. A strength that I have is I can create weight loss programs. So here's my process goal in relation to that strength. By the end of the week time frame, I would create a amount weight loss specific program. By the end of the week, I would create a weight loss program. It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable because I have the ability to do it, it's realistic, and there's a time frame. And that's my process goal. If you're doing the work, if you're putting in the work that I expect that you are doing at this point in time, we are going to get the results to improve our lives through these 18 steps. If we're not putting in the work, if we're just listening or just watching, we're not going to get the results. We actually have to do the work, sharpen our senses in terms of those things that would cause us to improve. In terms of weakness, I mentioned that I am often inconsistent. I start and stop. Now, here's my process goal. Within the next 2 weeks, I would get a workout buddy to assist, that is supposed to be assist, not assistant, to assist in holding me accountable and ensuring that I keep up with my sessions. So, how do I overcome the weakness of being consistent? I'm going to get a workout partner to assist and hold me accountable. When am I going to do that? Within the next 2 weeks. Could I do that? Yes, of course. I have friends, and 2 weeks is not an unreasonable time frame to get a friend to be willing to support you. So you're going to be overcoming your weakness, and that's the process, that's the action that you're going to take to overcome your weakness. Opportunity. I said in terms of opportunity, there are several gyms and play park close by to where I live. So I would attend the fitness range gym beginning the 1st of next month for 4 1-hour sessions per week. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enroll in the fitness range gym beginning next month, and I'm going to do 4 1-hour sessions per week. That's my process that would help me to lose the weight that I want to lose. It's specific, it's measurable, there's a time frame, it's reasonable. 4 sessions per week is reasonable. Good? And it's an opportunity that I'm going to take advantage of. The fact that there's a gym close by, I'm going to take advantage of that. I could have simply said, in terms of play parks, I'm going to attend the park next door to my home beginning the 1st of next month for 4 1-hour sessions per week. Threat. Gym fees are expensive, or sometimes play parks are unsafe. Remember, we identified those as threats on the previous slide. So I would begin immediately saving $5 every day to put towards my monthly gym fees. That's how I'm going to work around the fact that gym fees are expensive. If I put $5 away every day, a month has give or take 30 days, that's $150 that I could put towards my gym fee. So I'm working around the threat that gym fees are expensive. In terms of the play parks being unsafe, in like manner, I could identify those times that I can go where there are a lot of persons there present. When there's lighting, I could even identify persons that would be willing to go with me to the play park to treat with the fact that there's a threat of the play park being unsafe. So essentially, we identified our outcomes, the outcomes that we're after, the goals that we're after, we identified them. We looked at the situation and conducted a SWOT analysis, and we identified those actions that we could take to overcome or to utilize our strengths, to overcome our weaknesses, to take advantage of opportunity and deal with threats. So in terms of my emotional well-being, my goal is to reduce my negative self-talk to at most 1 episode per day. I hope to be at this level within the next 2 months. So, my strength, one of my strengths, I am aware of techniques to manage inner dialogue. So here's my process goal. For the next week, I would improve my understanding of techniques to manage inner dialogue by spending an hour a day looking at related YouTube videos. So I know techniques to manage inner dialogue. For example, there's cognitive restructure, there's thought stoppage. There are some ways to do it. I know of these. I'm aware of these techniques. But I'm going to strengthen my understanding. I'm going to improve my understanding by spending at least an hour a day looking at YouTube videos for the next 2 weeks or so, or for the next week. That's my process goal. A weakness. I unconsciously drift into the undesirable practice of negative self-talk. So what's the process to overcome this weakness? Effective immediately. For the next 2 months, I would engage in an hourly inventory of my thoughts. I would engage in an hourly inventory of the thoughts I am choosing. So give or take every hour on the hour, I could even put a beep on my phone or a beep on my watch. And every time an hour changes, I could say, what am I thinking right now? What were my habitual thoughts for the past hour? And pay attention to see to what extent I'm engaging in negative self-talk or negative inner dialogue. Opportunity. Remember we said my partner is willing to support my efforts to improve my emotional well-being. And my process goal should allow me to take advantage of an opportunity. So here's what. Effective immediately for the next 2 months, I will solicit 2 hours a day, 2 hours of my partner's time weekly. So I could say to my partner, you're willing to support my efforts. Could we every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. and every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. could we spend time where I'd share with you some of those things that are going on in my mind in which I'd like to make improvement. That's taking advantage of the opportunity. Now, threat. Negative world events often support my negative view of life. Quite often, we get the news of negative world events on the news. One of the things we could do effectively immediately, I would not look at the nightly news for a period of 1 month in the first instance. So if you do not look at the world news every night where you see all this negative going on in the world, you would be starving yourself of some of the fuel that help you to see the world negatively. Now, some of us may say, I can't miss out on the news. The news is important. I need to know what's going on in the world. Yes, you need to know what's going on in the world, and chances are you would be even if you don't look at the nightly news. But you don't need to be inundated with everything that is negative in every part of the world. There are some things that you can do something about. There are some things that you can do nothing about. And knowing them, it just makes the world seem as a less friendly space. If you deprive yourself of some of that negative content, you would actually be doing yourself a favor and causing yourself to see or to recognize there are a lot of things going on in the world that would be good, but the news do not bring it across. So, in terms of the threat of negative world events supporting your negative view of life, a way to get around that is to discontinue looking at the nightly news for a period of 1 month in the first instance. And I tried this, and after a month I realized I didn't really need to go back to the nightly news, and since that time I have discontinued totally looking at the news at night, such that it puts me in a negative state before going to bed. I've discontinued that, and I think I've reaped significant reward from that practice. Good. Step 14, we're getting there. Create positive statements to move yourself to action. Remember, in a previous video we talked about affirmations. We have a full video on making affirmations that work. You could check it out in the Freedom series, or there's a full video on the channel that talks about making affirmations that work. But we need to begin to affirm to ourselves that we are becoming the kind of individual through which our dreams and our goals can find expression. We need to affirm that to ourselves. In case we feel like doubting it, we need to affirm that to ourselves. So every time you feel Every time you think negatively about your chances of doing well or achieving the results that you want, every time you think negatively, you need to affirm yourself that things would work out. And one of the ways you could do that is you could create positive self-statements in relation to each dimension of well-being. For example, in terms of my physical well-being, you could say, I am progressing towards my ideal weight as I enjoy daily physical activity and make sensible food decisions. So you would believe that about yourself to the extent that you're taking action. And to the extent that you're not taking action, you would feel a sense of dissonance, that disconnect between those things that you're saying and those things that you're doing. And that dissonance or disconnect should encourage you to begin to take action. So if repeatedly, several times for the day, you're making the statement, I am progressing towards my ideal weight as I enjoy daily physical activity and make sensible food decisions, if you keep repeating that, eventually you would not want to be lying to yourself, so you would take those kinds of actions. In terms of emotional well-being, a positive self-statement can be, I feel good about life. I manage my inner dialogue and I think the thoughts that make me feel good. Once you repeat these things, once you're engaging in negative talk, you would feel that dissonance, that disconnect, and you would make the switch. And once you make your statement, I feel good about life, I manage my inner dialogue, that would give you the fuel to continue feeling good about life and discontinuing negative self. Step 15, we're getting there. Now, step 15, we talk about creating an activity log. Now, an activity log is simply the way you spend every hour of every day. You create an activity log. How am I spending my time? You log every activity in which you are engaged. And we talk about create a 168-hour baseline activity log. 168 hours is simply 24 hours multiplied by 7 days for the week. And baseline means that we look at what's going on right now as it exists in our life. Not what we would prefer, not what we should be doing, but as it exists in our life. That's a baseline activity log. That's the kind of like taking a before picture before you engage in a weight loss or weight gain or beautification makeover. So it's like taking a before picture. So our baseline activity log is just that if today is Sunday, we at 12 a.m. on a Sunday, what are we doing? At 1 a.m., what are we doing? At 2 a.m., what are we doing? At 3 a.m., what are we doing? And then we do that for every day of the week when we get up. We're not creating stories of the ideal. We're recording exactly what we're doing. One of the worst things to do in creating your activity log is to just put ditto, or the curly apostrophes. Is it apostrophes? Curly quotation marks that we just put to show it's the same thing happening. We don't want to do that. We want to actually write down what is happening. If we're using these quotation marks or the ditto, we may be tempted or seduced into taking the easy way out and putting ditto where ditto should not be. So track your behavior over a period of 168 hours as your baseline. So on the previous slide, you would look for every single thing related to health and fitness or physical well-being, everything that you spend time on, and you put it. So on Sunday, I spent 2 hours related to my health and fitness. On Monday, I spent 1. On Tuesday, I didn't spend any. On Wednesday, I spent 1. On Thursday, I spent 2. On Friday, I didn't spend any. On Saturday, I spent 2. So you now have a clear sense of, because we recognize that you must engage in specific causes in order to get specific results, you could see clearly in your debrief, if I am not engaging in specific causes, I'm not going to get any better results. So in terms of my emotional well-being, let's say on Sunday I paid no attention. I didn't pay attention to improving my emotional well-being. On Monday I didn't. On Tuesday, I didn't. My partner made themselves available for us to have a conversation, and I did not take advantage of it. I did not go on YouTube to find out more about improving my inner dialogue, techniques for improving my inner dialogue. I did not monitor my thoughts. I did nothing. What I can clearly see here is because the actions in which you engage produce the results that you're getting, I have taken no action to improve my emotional well-being, so I can say with certainty I'm not going to improve my emotional well-being. Now, you are required to do this debrief for all the areas that you identified and get a clear sense of to what extent you're progressing to the results that you want. Now, step 17 says conduct unfreeze, move, refreeze activities. Now, unfreeze, move, refreeze are terminologies used in organizational behavior where you talk about unfreeze, what are those things the organization must stop doing in order to get better results. Move, we talk about what are those things the organization must begin to do, must move towards in order to get better results. And refreeze, once we're getting better results, how could we make that our new way of being as an organization? We are using that methodology in terms of unfreeze to look through our activity log and identify those things that we must stop doing. So we could highlight those things that we must stop doing and replace it with things that we must begin to do. For example, you would see here from 6 to 7 a.m. on the previous activity log, this individual was sleeping. They removed sleeping from there and put morning jog, which means that on Sunday they got up early and they took a morning jog. 6 to 7 on Monday they did a workout. 6 to 7 on Tuesday they took a morning jog. So they actually removed sleep, which was perhaps one of the things that they could sacrifice, and in its place they put physical activity. That's what you need to do. Go through your activity log and see, you know what, I could dispense with this activity without any real challenges. I could dispense with this activity and I could put in its place this activity, which would help me in terms of achieving the goals that I want to achieve. So you would go through your entire activity log, which is 7 days multiplied times 24 hours a day. Look at what you're doing and say, you know what, I spent 0 hours in terms of strengthening my relationship with my partner. I need to spend at least 4 hours for the week. So I'm going to put this here, movie night with my partner, date night with my partner. So I now begin to do these things. In terms of my financial well-being, I am doing nothing to create an additional source of income. What about if I take time away from PlayStation and hanging with the boys, and I begin to take that time creating a how-to document that I could put and have it on sale online, or I could create an ebook and make that ebook available on Amazon. How could I take time away from a low yield and put that time towards a higher yield? And of course, remember, if we decide to make excuses, the excuses of I have no time or this is very important, remember, those things that matter most must never be held at the mercy of those things that matter least. There are certain things that we could discontinue. We have to prioritize if we want to improve our lives. So this right here, the conduct, unfreeze, move, refreeze activity that we require to do is extremely important. Now, once you've made the changes that you need to make in terms of the way you use time, in terms of the activities in which you engage, and you're getting results, you cannot afford to slip into unconscious behavior. You cannot afford to recidivate, go back to a previously undesirable state. That means we have to refreeze. Refreeze means make this our new way of being, the new level of function, and the new way that we are operating as individuals. That's refreeze. So step 17, it's an all important step that utilizes everything that we would have done from step 1 all the way to step 17. Now, we're on step 18 now, and step 18 is simply rinse and repeat as necessary. So keep doing these things that would allow us to become clearer on those things that we want in life and allow us to produce the results that we are after. So from step 1 to step 17, we just go them over as often as we need to. We don't necessarily need to, we would not have to write everything over and over, but as we pay attention to what's going on, we can make small tweaks. So step 1, we defined well-being, and we could just look to what extent am I still happy with this definition that I use. Step 2, we identified key dimensions of well-being, and we would have identified 8 in the initial part of this video. We could ask ourselves, am I happy with these 8? If you didn't identify 8 and you identified 5 or 6, am I happy with these 5 or 6? In this third step, we define the areas that we identified. We could go back. Am I happy with the way I defined it? Should I define it differently based on the way I now feel, based on the person that I am at this point in time, based on the person that I have become? Step 4, we looked at our mental blueprint, or our preferred state, or our ideal. We looked at what we really want. Step 5, we looked at our life's conditions, what's actually going on in my life at this point in time. Step 6, we identify the gap, to what extent we need a lot of improvement or a little improvement, or if we're good to go. We looked at some of the things that cause us to be stuck. But before that, we looked at the cost of inaction, what happens if we do nothing. Then we looked at the rewards for taking action, what happens if we take action to improve. Then we look at some of those things that cause us to be stuck. Then we look at some of those things that could cause us to improve. And then we set an outcome goal. We did a SWOT analysis. We set process goals. We created positive self-statements. We began to pay attention to our behaviors. We debrief our activity log. And we made certain kinds of changes. And in step 18 now, we're saying keep doing that to get the results that you want. So this brings us to the end of this video, episode number 31 in the Freedom series. I honestly hope that the entire month of August has been useful to you on Rydeus-The channel. If you have not been using these videos, my best recommendation is that you just give yourself that gift of settling down and going through these videos, trying to get an understanding of these principles and trying to practice these principles. Give yourself that gift as you transform yourself from the individual that you are into the individual that you must become in order to achieve the quality of life that you would like to achieve. In the previous episodes, we restricted our attention to financial well-being, and in this video we are using a more generalized and holistic approach to our personal development. But the content we would have provided from episode 1 to episode 30 is useful in improving any aspect of your life. It's now 59 minutes in terms of this video. My aim was that this video does not cross 1 hour, and I think we've done it. I encourage you guys do the best you could to bring about the changes that you need to bring about in yourself. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna get the results if you don't take the action. I don't know how else to impress upon you that you need to take the kinds of action required to produce the quality of results that you want. That's a problem with many of us. We want a particular quality of results, but don't want to engage in the level of effort required. And there's a saying that goes, only the doer learns. Only the doer learns. only the person who is taking action would get results, would get improvements. The results that you get, you just move from result to result and continue to improve. In my final 5 seconds of this hour against which I presented this video, I wish you best of luck on your endeavors. All the best.